Yeah, everybody's here.
How about that, huh?
In person, everybody's here. Live.
Right, live from Norwalk, it's Thursday night.
All right. Awesome.
Here it comes.
You guys ready to go then? Everybody's ready to go. We will go ahead and call to order the city council business meeting for Thursday, November 3rd, 2022. Kayla, would you call the roll? 6 p.m.
Councilmember Lester,
Here.
Baker,
Here.
Reva, here, Cool,
Here.
Livingston, here, Mayor Phillips.
I am here as well, so we do have quorum. We will go on. Item number 2 is on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you please rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance with me?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 3 is approval of the agenda. Would anybody like to move any of the consent agenda items to the regular agenda? Hearing none, can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
Second.
Motion by Livingston, seconded by Reva. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same. Motion carries. Item 4, welcome of guests and public comment. Thank you all for being here tonight and maybe online. We'll go ahead and open the dais at this point in time to address council for non-agenda items. We'll give you a 3-minute time limit. I realize we can't take action on these tonight since they're not on the agenda. Also, if you'd like to comment on any item in the consent agenda, now would be the time. Seeing nobody, we will move on. Item 5, presentations. To begin with, we have the introduction of Medical Director Brian Jennett. Look how tan you are.
I just woke up like that this morning. Thank you. I just wanted to bring our new medical director. Last council meeting, you guys approved the contract to bring him on board. As you know, by state code, we are required to have a medical director for our EMS services. This is Dr. Brian Jennett. I'm gonna let him tell you a little bit about himself.
Hello, I'm Brian. I grew up not far from here, actually, in Osceola, so I'm from Iowa. I went to med school at University of Iowa. I did an emergency medicine residency at the University of Wisconsin. I stayed there for a couple of years and did a flight medicine fellowship. And currently, I'm a physician at Unity Point, Des Moines.
Awesome.
Yeah, so he has a background in emergency medicine. We're really excited to have him and wanted to make sure you guys got a chance to see the face with the name. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Also a Norwalk resident. Also excited.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for taking the job.
Yes.
All right. Second presentation tonight. We do have an audit presentation by Denman and Company. Do you want to introduce?
Sure. This is Robert Endress from Denman and Company. They have performed our audit. I think this is a 3rd year. And we're going to recommend an extension on the consent agenda.
All right.
Good evening.
Good
I think
evening.
this group is pretty familiar with me now, but again, my name is Robert Endress. I'm not a partner with Denman and Company. We have performed the fiscal year 2022 audit. You have that issue report in front of you. I was going to spend just a couple minutes with you going over that audit report to try to make this brief and as sweet as possible. I do believe you have also a brief presentation in your material as well. It's a little easier to digest, so I'm going to focus on that document rather than the 50-page financial statement audit, which would be a little harder to get through in a short, concise meeting tonight. Just a refresher on the audit team. Again, myself as audit partner, have been involved with City's audit for the past several years, along this year as well. Dave Ellis is another individual partner with our firm who has been intimately involved, and we typically have a couple other staff on site as well during the course of our audit procedures. I'll jump you to probably page 4 of that brief presentation that I believe you have in your material. Beginning with our independent auditors report, which you can find again, page 4 of the material, also page 4 of the audit report, incidentally. A reminder regarding our procedures here and these financial statements. The financial statements are those of management. Management is responsible for ensuring that they're complete and accurate, they conform with the county standards, and that there are controls in place to support the accuracy of those financial statements. Our responsibility as the city's auditors is to perform an audit and to express an opinion on the accuracy of the financial statements. We performed that audit in accordance with our professional standards, which include government auditing standards. And that audit includes a series of tests, beginning with identifying risks to the city's financial statements, and from there evolving to develop procedures and testing to help us identify and mitigate those risks so that we can express that opinion on the accuracy of the statements. I'm happy to say that we are issuing what we call a clean or unmodified opinion on these financial statements, which is the highest level of assurance our profession does provide regarding the accuracy and completeness of financial records. Diving into the records, the numbers here just a little bit, just real briefly here. On the following page on that presentation, you do see a very short summary of citywide financial statements. This doesn't come to news with anyone here, I'm sure, but the city's growing, and you can see that reflected here in the financial statements. Revenue growth of about 12 million in cash receipts year over year. Bond proceeds are skewing that quite a bit, but there still is a pretty significant growth in receipts during the fiscal year, and also expenditures, which grew from 24 million to 31 million year over year. And again, capital projects being a big driver of that, but there is organic, just day-to-day operational expenditure growth as well. Spending a moment looking at fund balances as well as a pretty key indicator of the city's fiscal health. Governmental fund balances total just over 22 million at fiscal year end. Of that, about 3.3 million is in the general fund. That core key operating fund of the city. That $3.3 million general fund balance does represent about 160 days of cash on hand. We normally look at 3 to 6 months as being a healthy fund balance. It's right within that wheelhouse there regarding fund balance of this general fund. I'll also point you to net operating income on the enterprise funds, which would be those funds of the city that are supported by charges for services, most notably water, sewer, and stormwater fund. Each of those are showing net operating income, which is important use for those city funds so that they can reinvest in either pay off debt or self-fund capital projects. So we're seeing healthy fund balances, healthy net operating funds within those funds as well. Just to spend a moment, along with our opinion on the financial statements under government auditing standards, we also have a responsibility to evaluate internal control on how the city control processes are operating and functioning to ensure accurate financial statements. During that review of internal controls, if we identify deficiencies in those control processes, we have a responsibility to report them to you in this auditor's report. And I'm happy to say we did not identify any deficiencies in internal control that required reporting. The state of Iowa also asks us to look at certain compliance requirements that cities must operate under. We will test those compliance requirements to see if there are instances of non-compliance that require reporting. And once again, I'm happy to say we did not have any instances of non-compliance in this audit. So this is about as clean of an audit as we can really issue. The final item I'll talk briefly mention, there is also a short letter that should be in the information you have. This is called governance letter. It's an opportunity for us as your auditors to speak to governance directly about items that we felt warranted the council's attention. I'm happy to say this is a very boring letter, which is good news. We don't like issuing exciting governance letters. This letter is where we would hang any dirty laundry we have. We don't have any to report, frankly. On that second page, there are a couple paragraphs I do want to note in particular, though, for your review and reference, where we disclose any disagreements we had with management or any difficulties we had performing the audit. And I'm happy to say we had neither of either of those. At this point, I do want to stop and thank Jean and her team. They work very hard to make sure the audit goes smoothly. They're very accommodating to us. I must admit, we are rather distracting. We kind of monopolize the staff's time for a good several days. So we always do appreciate the fact that they are willing to work with us and accommodate our needs. With that, that really covers my short presentation. Can I answer any questions from council members?
That sounds really good.
Good, clean, and pretty uneventful, which is the right kind of audit.
Good.
We like a boring audit.
Yes, thank you.
Good job. Thank you. Thank you. All right, with that, we'll go to our consent agenda. On the consent agenda, we have expenditures. We have the October 20th, 2022 minutes of the regular city council meeting. We have renewal of Class C, special Class C liquor license with Sunday sales for Villaggio Italian Restaurant. A resolution setting November 17th, 22 for a public hearing regarding an update to the Norwalk Comprehensive Plan. A resolution approving a 2-year extension of audit agreement with Denman and Company. A resolution appointing Wayne Swartz to the Central Iowa Waterworks Technical Committee. Excuse me, we have a resolution authorizing the chief of police to execute a 28E agreement with the Iowa Alcohol Beverage Division for compliance checks on tobacco, alternative nicotine, and vapor product vendors. A resolution approving the Iowa Department of Transportation Statement of Completion and Final Acceptance of Work for the Great Western Trail Connection Phase 2 project. A resolution approving a 28E agreement to continue membership with the Safety Coalition of Central Iowa. We have an approval of fiscal year 24 tax increment financing certification. We have approved the fiscal year 22 annual financial report. And we have a request to advance the seasonal office assistant position to part-time office assistant position for Parks and Rec. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Lester, seconded by Livingston. Caitlin, would you call roll?
Councilmember Lester,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Reba,
Yes.
Cool,
Yes.
Livingston.
Yes.
All right, that motion carries. Item 7, we have old and new business for consideration, discussion, and possible action. Item A is a public hearing regarding the 2022 PCC Street Rehabilitation Project. We'll open up the public hearing at 6:10 PM. Wayne, I'm going to let you talk about this one.
This is a project we're funding as part of our street maintenance funds. It's a patching project around the Windflower, Cassidy Drive, Richard George area. Generally, in the past, we've just contracted. We'll take competitive quotes from contractors and do like a local letting. This is a project we pulled more patches into a bigger project and hired an engineer to manage the project for us.
Caitlin, have we received any oral or written comments on this item?
No.
Public comments? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and close public hearing at 6:11 PM. Item 7B is a resolution approving plan specifications, form of contract, and estimate of cost for the 2022 PCC Street Rehabilitation Project. So we just had a public hearing for this project, and this is the first of 3 resolutions needed to get the project launched. Council passed a resolution that approved the preliminary plan specs, form of contract, and estimate for this project, and this resolution is the final approval for all of those. Wayne, what do you got to add?
Nothing additional.
All right, any discussion, questions? Council?
Second.
Motion by Livingston, seconded by Lester. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Caitlin, would you call roll?
Councilmember Baker,
Yes.
Reba,
Yes.
Cool,
Yes.
Livingston.
Yes.
Lester.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Item 7C is a resolution awarding contract for the 2022 PCC Street Rehabilitation Project. So this is the second of the 3 resolutions needed to start the project. This resolution awards the contract to I-80 Concrete. We had a bid that came in lower than I-80 Concrete, and I'll let Wayne and Jim inform you about why the lower bid was disqualified.
It was really close, but there was a little bit that was about 1,000 under, but it just wasn't a big compliant. There was a requirement in there that they had to have a certain type of bond form. It was quite clear, and they're saying you got to use this form. Nothing else is acceptable. And though it does seem kind of like a small thing, they probably would, if we called them and said, hey, you want to change it, they probably would have said yes, but if that law says they got to be compliant. And if we awarded it to them, the person, the second place bid could have objected saying, oh, wait a second, they weren't compliant, you can't award it to them. And so we've got to jump through those hoops and follow those laws strictly, so we have to take the second highest bid on it.
Anything else to add?
No, sir.
All right, any discussion, comments, questions from council?
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Lester, seconded by Livingston. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Caitlin, would you call roll?
Councilmember Reba,
Yes.
Cool,
Yes.
Livingston.
Yes.
Lester,
Yes.
Baker.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Item 7D is a resolution approving contract and bond for the 2022 PCC Street Rehabilitation Project. This is the third and final resolution to get this thing going. The resolution approves the contract and indicates how the city is going to pay I-80 Concrete for their work. Wait, got anything to add?
Nope.
Any discussion, questions, Council?
Motion.
Motion by Livingston, seconded by Reva. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Caitlin, would you call roll?
Councilmember Cool,
Yes.
Livingston. Yes. Lester,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Reba.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Item 7E is approval of the fiscal year 2022 financial audit report. So earlier in this meeting, we heard the audit presentation from Denman and Company, and this is an approval of that report. Jane, you got anything to add?
Yeah, I just want to review a few things for my agenda statement that I sent to
Yeah,
you.
go for it.
First of all, just thank you for extending their contract 2 years. They've been great to work with. The information exchange back and forth is really timely, and to approve an audit 11/3, I think's pretty darn good, November 3rd. So thank you. Just want to highlight some of the items in my agenda statement. The first item talks about the general fund balance increasing 227,000. I just wanted to remind council that we actually had a planned deficit for this year because we hired some staff toward the end of the budget year that we hadn't planned for. And so we actually had a deficit, but then we ended up with a positive balance of 227,000. And I think that is due to we had some departments that were able to leave some money on the table. We had asked each department head when the wage study came out, and we knew that we were going to be utilizing some reserves and pay that over 2 fiscal years to leave 1.5% on the table. And they ended up leaving 3% on the table. So everybody worked really well together to kind of rein in their expenses. So just wanted to mention that. We also do have a planned deficit for this year. When we did the budget, about 530,000. But just even looking in our first quarter, I think it'll probably be more than likely half of that. But if we get some grants come in or some other kind of contributions, that can change as well. So if we just kind of keep with the mindset, I hope department heads of leaving money on the table every year, 1.5%, 2%, 3%, whatever, for contingencies, because we always have a budget amendment. I just think that's a great practice if we can kind of keep that as a policy. The next one I want to talk about was the employee benefits levy fund. This one, we did have a decrease in this balance by about 65,000 due to hiring staff. It's kind of got a trickle effect, if you will. If we hire more staff, obviously this fund gets utilized more. But hopefully growth, if growth is a factor, we just don't know right now. We're plugging in 8%. I'm hoping that that's realistic. I think our growth, we're utilizing values from a year before. I think we were growing strong. Just not so certain about, if we go into a recession, what the year 25 and 26 will bring. So just kind of keeping that one in mind, and we'll keep an eye on that one. And then just finally, the last paragraph on the first page, it kind of goes into the second page. I was hoping I wasn't being confusing on that. I was talking about our general obligation debt. We finished the year with about 28.9 million in general obligation debt, which it wasn't bad. It was 51% of our constitutional debt limit, which is 5% of our total assessed value. So we could borrow up to 57 million based on that state law. Of course, we set our own internal limit of 75%, which leaves us at about 42.8 million. So we had 28.9 out of that 42.8 million. However, as you know, right after the end of the fiscal year, we took advantage of lower interest rates because we know that they keep going up, and we borrowed 19 million. So as of now, utilizing January 1, 2022 values, and we did grow 8%. Actually, we grew 10% in the debt service fund. So a little bit better because it's not subject to TIF. So we have about the ability to borrow about 64.9 million, and we are at 47.9. So we're just bumping up against our internal debt limit. So just something to think about for our next budget year. I am going to recommend that we don't borrow any money in the next fiscal year. And if we do have some projects that we actually want to do, that we utilize some cash that we have. And then do like a reimbursement resolution so that we can, utilize the January 2023 values. And the department heads, we've been going through the CIP, been really good about working and try to accommodate that and maybe doing some planning, engineering planning early, but yet not financing those projects till 2025. So just something to think about with the budget coming up. That's all I have unless you have any other questions.
Good job, Chief.
Thank you, Jean.
Anything else?
I kind of take that as good news, that it's getting at 68%. We also for free borrowed the 19. Great.
Thanks.
Okay. Anybody want to make a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Baker, seconded by Lester. Further discussion? Huh?
Said you gave it to the other audit first.
Yes, yeah, that's exactly right. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Caitlin would call roll.
Councilmember Livingston. Yes. Lester,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Riva. Yes. Cool.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Item 7F is a resolution approving the fiscal year 2022 annual urban renewal, the URA report. Jean, would you like to go over the report?
Sure, thank you. Just a brief overview. This report basically shows the projects we have are in our urban renewal area, any projects, the bonds associated with these projects, rebates paid, any related job incentives, LMI payments, which we actually first time utilized LMI. We paid Alice Place $175,000. The plan is they will request their remaining $175,000 this year. And then it gives us a breakdown. It shows a breakdown of the various areas, and it'll give you the base year, the sunset date of the TIF areas, the assessed values and the taxable values, and then any TIF taxes received in those areas. I will state, I believe the first year I gave this report to you, about 7 years now, it was about 40 pages long. It got her down to 18. We've had a lot of projects we've seen paid off. So a good, like Holmes, Preeb, Aquarisha, Lafredo, United Properties, Marketplace, Row Electronics, Roat, Ansel. And then next year, Echo Valley and Capital City Fruit will be paid off. So we're really making some good progress here on these areas. We did make rebate payments to United Properties, Michael Foods, and Capital City Fruit, which I mentioned 2 of those will be done next year. Our LMI fund balance is about 1.8 million. We are working on different ideas to utilize that cash. And then I think the key item is on my agenda statement, I originally had Colonial Meadows, Legacy, and Norwalk Business Center TIF areas sunsetting. I put fiscal year 24. That was incorrect. And I did have Kaylin update the link today. That should be fiscal year 23. Those sunset June 30, 2023. I think I was thinking we will reap the benefits in 2024 in our general fund, which is about what I calculated. The assessed value is 139 million. The taxable value is 85 million. So that will be about a $690,000 boost to our general fund for fiscal year 24. So I think that's pretty cool to see that happen. I think when we put these in place, we think 20 years is a long time. So next year when Echo Valley drops off, we'll see about another 500,000 come into the general fund. So that's all I have on that. If you have any questions.
I appreciate the brevity. But the other thing, seriously though, is it did help me to understand, because we work with so many things up here, right? So it's good to be able to keep track of, in that maze of things, what's coming, what's going, and when it happens.
Yeah,
I
I-
appreciate it.
Probably one thing that the legislature did right by putting this report in place. It kind of gives you, kind of keeps track of all the different areas.
Discussion, questions? If not, can I get a motion to approve that report?
Second.
Motion by Rivas, seconded by Cool. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Kayla, would you call roll?
Councilmember Lester,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Riva, Cool,
Yes.
Livingston.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item 7G is a resolution approving the preliminary plat of Dunn Property Plat 1. So this area is south of Michael Foods. Consists of around 40 acres. It's going to be developed into commercial and light industrial property. And this plat is for the eastern half of the 40 acres and consists of 2 buildings and a couple of outlots. Elliot, I'll turn it over to you.
Yep, so pretty much summed it up very well, Mayor. This is mostly just setting where the lot lines are going to be, identifying location of right of way, that sort of thing. We worked real closely with the engineering team and the applicants on this. Just to be clear, we're not doing a structural approval tonight. As I said, this is just lot lines mostly. We are still awaiting construction document review, which will be done by us to completely identify infrastructure, but it's a very simple preliminary plat, lots of just basic rectangles. That's about it. I know we do. I was told that Dan Carlson with the development team would be on the call tonight to answer any questions from that side, or I could field some as well.
Questions, comments, discussion from council?
The only comment I'd have, Mayor, is, good deal, all right?
Yes.
But besides that, I appreciate the street name. Mention it to Luke, he'll know what I'm talking about. And anyway, it's a pleasant step forward all the way around.
Great. Anything else? Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Baker, seconded by Riva. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Kayla, would you call roll?
Councilmember Baker,
Yes.
Riva. Yes. Cool,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Lester.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Item 7H is a resolution accepting infrastructure and approving the final plat of Farms of Holland Plat 5. So this area is to the north of the new City State Bank building. This is the final plat. All the infrastructure is already there and splits the property into 2 lots. Elliot, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, again, that pretty much sums it up. This is a minor subdivision that just goes straight to final plat. The original plan unit development contemplated this split, albeit not on a curvy dividing line. We have had some pre-app meetings with prospective occupants. Not sure how much I'm allowed to say at this time, but uses that are cohesive with the area. Actually, one of them is a giveaway because of the agenda item coming up, I guess.
Right. Which lot's the car wash gonna go on?
Lot 1, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway,
To the right or to the left?
Because you're looking.
apologies for the myopia. Anyway, that's about it. So happy to answer any questions.
That street has to curve like that, doesn't it, in order to come up with the alignment on the north end? Doesn't it line up with the exit from?
Yes, I believe it does.
That looks just about like the same street line that we talked about when a different.
It does. It looks
Person's gonna
amazingly
go in
like
there.
that,
Yes.
because you got those 2 points on each end that have to line up.
All right, any questions? Discussion? Motions?
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Livingston, seconded by Riva. Any further discussion? Kayla, would you call roll?
Councilmember Riva. Yes. Cool.
Yeah.
Livingston.
Yes.
Lester,
Yes.
Baker.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Item 7I is resolution accepting infrastructure and approving the final plat of Norwalk Central Plat 1. So this is our big dog plat of the night. This is for Heartland Property, Sportsplex, Diligent, and for the city of Norwalk. So before I turn this over to Elliot, I need to bring attention to a couple stormwater easements that need to be included with this final plat. As the city has worked through the complexity of the utilities feeding our new building, we discovered a segment of stormwater that is proposed on property owned by Sportsplex. Wayne may have additional comments if I didn't explain this enough in detail. Wayne, what do you got to add?
We're requesting 2 additional easements. One will be the city awarding an easement to Sportsplex, and one is Sportsplex awarding the easement to the city. It's just we have storm sewer there on the map. In the blue shaded area, there's a green storm line that serves only Sportsplex, but it does cross over onto city property. So they need easement to run that line over on our property. So we would be granting Sportsplex an easement for that. North of there, the city line from parcel AC lot 2, those 2 combine, and then it makes it a joint storm sewer. But then crosses back onto Sportsplex property, so we'll have city water going back onto their property that we need them to grant us the easement for, if we have to get in and repair it or maintain it.
In this map, that total blue area probably isn't all the easement, but that's where the easements will be contained within that area.
Say that again.
In other words, I think you wanted the easements to be a certain distance on either side of the.
Yeah, we need like a 20-foot easement. It may be
So
8 and 12 is probably what it'll be. I think we're 8 foot off the building and 12 foot getaway, correct? So the motion I would recommend would be to approve the agenda item with the addition of the necessary storm sewer easements.
Elliot, what you got?
That was the major point for tonight. Nothing has really changed between this and the plat of survey that divvied up everything in the 1, 2, 3, 4 and outlot formation we see here. One thing that we wanted to make sure we corrected prior to this meeting is getting that lot A street access on the north side of East 18th. Even though the infrastructure is still a work in progress, absolute worst case scenario, under Jim's advice, we want to make sure we can get into the site, and that allows us to get up to our frontage at the end of lot 2. So that pretty much sums it up.
All right. Any questions, discussion, comments from council? Can I get a motion to approve the resolution with the additional easements as discussed?
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Livingston, seconded by Cool. Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Caitlin, would you call roll?
Councilmember Cool,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Lester,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Reba. Yes.
All right, motion carries. Item 7J is a resolution authorizing execution of a contract addendum with De Novo for the core civil construction management. So Luke, I'm going to turn this over to you so I don't screw it up.
thank you, Mayor. One thing I did in here is I actually put in a link to the YouTube video of the meeting where we talked about the civil services. And I even found the minutes in the meeting where you could go and look at it, that give most of the background on this topic. Bottom line is when we hired De Novo, their contract that was submitted to the city was focused on the 4 walls only. But we still need to do civil work outside of that. So we're simply doing an amendment to that original contract to add in the civil work. I also wanted to point out right at the beginning of this, civil construction management services and civil engineering design services are 2 completely different things. We've already signed an agreement with Bishop Engineering to actually do the civil work, and you saw some of their handiwork earlier. Civil engineering work, thank you. So here we're talking about civil construction management services. So the people involved with being there on site, doing some inspections, overseeing the actual civil work being performed. Are there any questions?
Motion.
Motion by Livingston, seconded by Reba. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Kayla, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Livingston,
Yes.
Lester,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Reba,
Yes.
Cool,
Yes.
Item 7K is first reading of an ordinance amending chapter 177 rates and fees of the Norwalk Municipal Code. So this change is just update our rates and fees for next year. It's a fairly routine change. Luke's here for any questions that you may have.
Second.
Lester, seconded by Livingston. Any further discussion? Kayla, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Lester,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Reba,
Yes.
Cool,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Motion carries. Item 7L is a first reading of an ordinance amending chapter 160 residential code of the Norwalk Municipal Code by adopting the 2021 International Residential Code with amendments. So I'm going to let Tony Stravers explain this. Yeah, please.
Thank you all. It's, every 3 years, the International Code Council comes out with a new code cycle. This is just an adoption to keep us current with the metro jurisdictions in our area. If you have any questions about the amendments, anything, I'll be glad to talk code.
So do all the cities in the metro area adopt this?
Correct. Might be at different times. We're always kind of lacking behind, kind of following the pack. This year it's been with the state and how they tried to do a statewide building code last year. The jurisdictions have gotten together and made this a priority. And that's what we're trying to fall in line with. So when the state does something wrong.
So this will pretty much standardize us with many of the communities in the metro area.
Correct.
Other questions?
Do you have any problems with them? Any problems with any of the changes?
No, I do not. Now with the residential code, I think everything is falling in line with everybody else.
Relying on you on that.
Thank you. Thank you.
HBA going to complain?
Of course.
I just wondered.
I know damn well.
All right. Anything else? Can I get a motion to approve the ordinance?
Second.
Well, okay, so is that Baker, I think?
Yeah.
And Lester. Kalen, would you call a roll?
Councilmember Baker,
Yes.
Reba. Yes. Cool,
Yeah.
Livingston,
Yes.
Lester,
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Thanks, Tony. Item 7M is the second reading of an ordinance amending the Farms of Holland Planned Unit Development to add car wash as an approved use in PUD Parcel 5. So last meeting, we had a public hearing and the first reading of this ordinance. Elliot, do you got anything to add?
I have no idea what this is about. No, nothing to add.
Cat's out of the bag now.
All right.
I've got a question on this one, and this is me after the afterthoughts, and I've been by a couple of these tunnel car washes. So this is where I'm asking the question of how much noise, we've got the residential across the street, and it's apartments of older folks. So I'm just trying to, in my head, lights from cars driving out. I'm just wanting to know, are we anticipating problems with that? The beeps from car washes, the noise.
It's the dryers that are
But yeah,
echoing.
is this one that some tunnel car washes are open 24/7? Is this one not open 24/7? There's some of this is the stuff that's popped in my head as I've driven around the last couple of weeks since we talked about it first time. And I think it's great. I'm just in my head trying to wrap my head around if I'm living right there. I'm not, if I were living right there.
And can we ask the builder to say, okay, the entrance is going to be on the north, the exit's on the south. That's where the lights would shine out. The dryers would be on that.
Well, and I don't know. That's where I'm kind of at. So if you want to know, I'm fine with it, but at the same time, I have questions about you're getting to some site specific things that maybe not affect this.
I think with the PUD amendment, it just makes it an allowed use. Of course, you're still gonna be site plan, you're gonna still see all those things and ask these questions, but also I recognize that this is the first step of allowing car wash. I don't know whether you're gonna go there or not. I guess maybe what you could do is just vote on the second reading. And maybe let the powers that be know that you're gonna have those questions before you vote on third reading. You'd like them to have those answers for it next meeting.
And maybe it's a matter of, can we restrict it to a part of it versus opening it up? I mean, I'm just trying in my head, because if we open this whole, all four of these lots up to car wash, I know one of them's got a building on it already. There's 3 other lots that could be a car wash, so it doesn't have to be a tunnel car wash. It could be a bay car wash as well, and those make some noise. I can tell you, I live quite a ways away from it on certain nights. Some nights you can hear it.
I thought that we were just looking at the one.
It allows car washes, and in my mind, that would include both sides. So this
Yeah,
is
but-
where I'm just wanting to clarify a few things before we completely roll
I
forward.
didn't
with
think
so-
it was through the whole area.
It looks like, and I haven't researched it, but the map that we have in front of us right now, PUD parcel 5 is all 3 of the empty lots and the bank. So it does not, my interpretation looking at it right here is that this change would allow car wash anywhere within that PUD parcel 5, which is all 3 of the empty parcels.
Well, we may want to have that refined as we go
And
along.
that can be restricted back further. Our public hearing, all the notices and all that stuff were for this whole area, so you can retract it, make it smaller. We couldn't have made it bigger. We said, well, we want to include this property across the street. So I guess it's up to the council. on
Again,
what they wanna do.
I'm just bringing up things that have popped in my head since we talked about it 2 weeks ago and weren't in my head then, so. And it's minor. I'm still for the padding of it. I just want to make sure we're thinking of.
Yeah, but when at P and Z, when they brought that forward, the concept was east-west layout. Okay, now this isn't the plot because we haven't approved that yet. But it was an east-west layout for that. So if you were concerned about lights in the interior, they would shine toward the highway and over toward the park. In the way they have it laid out. And it probably would be a good idea if we restricted that down to just that area. that
I think I'm fine with the open-ended piece of that, but I just had questions about some of the.
Well, I don't know if I am.
aesthetics, yeah.
This is- Because this is part of a PUD and zoning can be conditional, is it possible that along with this amendment, there could be some additional conditions such as buffering, landscaping, some additional requirements like that that would address some of those issues?
Well, and maybe I'm asking, I should have asked our engineer or Wayne, either one could probably go tell me, because if you drive out there, that lot sits a little higher than the lots down, but the Holland Farm stuff is all down below. That's the piece that I'm concerned about is over there.
Did Holland Farms show up at PUC at their public hearing or anything? Anybody on behalf of Holland Farms?
No, negative. There was a representative from the bank there. That went out.
And I just want to make sure I understand, we're concerned about the noise and lights greater than the highway noise,
Correct.
right? I mean,
I'm not, and again, I'm just in my head.
I'm just
it's not a-
saying, this is on the highway, which is construction traffic and truck traffic and the emergency alternative route to Highway 35 and
No, I agree. This is where I'm saying, it's just stuff that's popped in my head when I've been driving around and I see some of those others.
I think my impression of these car wash, the better the quality car wash, the less noise. It seems to just be more internal. It's the really cheap, crappy ones that all the air blowers are exposed and they're on the outside, and those are obnoxious. I'm hoping that this is a nice one. I have no idea about it, but I hope it's a good quality.
Well, maybe we could ask the mayor if the staff could find the answers to some of these questions before we vote on this again.
Well, we have 3 readings.
Yeah.
We're on the second, right?
Right.
Working
So
with.
we'll have time.
Can you ask those questions? Ask questions.
Yep.
Yeah, that's fine. All right. I'll make a motion to approve the second.
second.
All right, so motion by Lester, seconded by Livingston. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Kalen, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Riva.
Yes.
Cool,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Lester,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Item 7N, the second reading of an ordinance amending chapter 176 subdivision regulations of the city of Norwalk, Iowa, to update stormwater regulations. So we had the first reading of this ordinance at our last meeting. I know we had a few changes that council wanted to see. Elliot, are you aware if Luke was able to make those changes?
My understanding is that Luke kind of briefed council about the entirety of this amendment at the last meeting. And that he recommended I kind of pass the ball off to Tony B. I think he described, I did go back and listen to the discussion. I believe it was section 3, subparagraph G, and then the first number 2. That was possibly up for grabs. Tony knows I'm passing the buck to him, so I will do that.
We're going to remove section first number 2, 2A, 2B, and 2C.
Correct.
Tony's on as well.
Yeah,
There's
Mayor,
still-
if I could add some comments here.
Yeah, go for it.
All right, hopefully everybody can hear me all right. Yeah, so just to back up a little bit, yeah, this is our second reading to amend the subdivision regulations to update our stormwater regulations. And so essentially what this ordinance does is it modifies our stormwater management requirements by using that Iowa Stormwater Management Manual created by the DNR, and essentially implements the primary recommendations in that ISWIM document, as it's called, that we don't already require based on our current SUDAS requirements that we've adopted. So one of my concerns when we talked about eliminating these first paragraph 2 and the subparagraphs underneath that was I was a little bit concerned, or I guess more questions than concerns. I wanted to know where the rest of metro communities were on this, because I wanted to, make sure we weren't necessarily on the front end of this, as well as, keeping the city marketable in comparison with the other communities based on what they were doing. So I've done some research since then, and I can tell you that Waukee for number 1 has essentially adopted this ordinance almost in its entirety, very similar to what we have in front of the council today. And then also the city of Clive, Urbandale, from what I'm told, what I understand, the city of Clive, Urbandale, Johnston, Windsor Heights, Des Moines, and Pleasant Hill have adopted some form of this ordinance with some other caveats. I can tell you that Ankeny, another fast-growing community in the metro area, obviously has not adopted this yet, and also that Waukee is face some challenges with this, with some pushback from developers, but we're not alone on this. So Luke Paris and I have reviewed this in detail, and one of the things I wanted to do was simplify the language in this to make it a little bit more clear to developers. But after figuring out where the rest of the communities are in the metro area and reviewing this in detail, I think Luke Harris and I are both okay with the language as written. We've got to make some little changes in terms of the numbers, and there's a few little minor things that we want to strike out of this, but nothing of any substance. So with the second reading, we're recommending to approve this as written, and with that third reading, we'll have a few minor things that we want to strike through just to clean this up a little bit, make sure there's not any discrepancies or anything like that. So there's just a couple minor things. So with that, I guess I'll try to answer any questions that anybody has.
What is the main reason Altoona and Ankeny has not adopted this?
Ankeny did their own version of this, and they were actually one of the first to do it. It's a rather hefty document. I haven't read it myself, so I'm not quite sure how it compares, but they just kind of went in their own direction. Altoona, I'm not sure about.
this was a big initiative of Capital Crossroads, and I think it's where we're headed in the future. Again, just thinking about where everybody else is in the metro area. We get, to date, from developers, engineers, we get stormwater calculations all over the place. A lot of their calculations are based on things that are a little bit subjective and some interpretation, different interpretations that we get to. So the important parts of this really standardizes everything, that review process, that developing those stormwater calculations. There's some key things in this ordinance that I think are very important for us in terms of standardizing what those computations that we get from these engineers. It takes a lot of that subjectiveness out of it and really standardizes things. So there's definitely some important things in there that the important things also to understand is these requirements are going to impact those stormwater management plans and primarily the space that's required for detention and a more costly outlet structure that's going to be a staged release type structure. So there is an impact associated with this. It's definitely going to take a little bit more area to meet these stormwater detention requirements. So there's a potential of getting some pushback, but this is a good thing. I think it's where the metro area is headed in the future. There's definitely some things environmentally that in terms of water quality, downstream protection, downstream property protection, everything that are definitely positive with this.
Thank you.
Okay. So what I heard is that this is not quite in final form. Is that?
Yeah. So yeah, just shortly here, it's real close. So what I'm saying is that there's a few things that we'll strike through and so the council can see that, but nothing of substance here. So nothing substantial that we would recommend changing from this. So we're gonna recommend keeping that paragraph 2 and the sub paragraphs, renumbering everything, and just cleaning things up a little bit.
Okay, so I see two options. We can pass it like it is and the second reading and then get the final form next, or we could table this and wait for the final form for the second reading.
I'm fine.
Yeah, I
With
think we
it
could
now. I would move to
Yeah.
to do it now.
make a motion.
Well, she already made the motion. You want
Well,
a
then I'll
second?
second your motion.
All right, that sounds good. Okay, so we got a motion by Livingston, second by Cool to approve second reading. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Kayla, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Cool,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Lester,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Riva.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Item 8, council inquiries and staff updates. Jim.
Nothing.
All right, staff. David?
Had a pretty good park and recreation meeting.
Awesome.
It went real well. It was real well organized. They've organized study group. Got to save them a ton of time, I think, and help better focus them. So that was very encouraging, and it was a timely meeting. I also understand that West Des Moines is looking at building a $600 million water park over on Grand Avenue, which is interesting.
Indoor.
Yeah. So I don't know what kind of an impact that may or may not have directly or indirectly on our community. Also, when I was reading through these building codes that we were voting on, I was glad to see the underground service requirements in there for all the electrical and any other wires, get those out of the air. So that's a big step forward. That's it.
All right, thank you. Elliot.
Be seeing more projects from our department related to a lot of the stuff that was on tonight's agenda over by the Dunn property. And then of course the car wash, and originally there was a retail structure intended for that site. I think they're going to relocate that to the second lot. Haven't seen a finalized plan for it, but that's on the horizon. Wrapping up some really interesting continuing ed that I'll share with you guys later. So that's all.
All right. Sounds good. Carrie.
Thanks, Mayor. Just a few things. Open enrollment is coming up later this month. Gina and I have met with True North and talked about renewals for insurance. We're going to present that next council meeting. But we got good news there. Also, just based on employee feedback, right now, we currently only offer one dental plan, and we've had feedback from employees that they'd really like a more robust plan offering. So we're looking to boost our offerings for staff for dental, but otherwise no major changes. Another thing that I wanted to mention, most of you know that every year we do an annual employee appreciation lunch, usually at the beginning part of December over at Public Safety. This year, the Wellness Committee decided to do something a little different. Again, based on feedback from employees, I think that format made some people feel a little uncomfortable. Maybe it was a little forced. So we decided to make kind of a week-long event of it. We're still going to do the food truck like we did last year. But one day I think we're going to have, I know, we're going to have breakfast delivered to the different departments. Again, food truck day, we have some other surprises along the way. So just to kind of make it a more extended event, really making it an event where employees are feeling appreciated rather than just kind of ticking a box. So the Wellness Committee is pretty excited about that. And then the only other thing I really wanted to mention was I've been working with Ty this week on an employee newsletter. I'm really excited about this. I keep saying it's been on my to-do list for so long, but it has been on my to-do list all of this year. So I'm really excited to have her on board and have her helping me just put that together. So hopefully that'll go out on Monday. And again, that's based on feedback from employees that they really want more communication. They want to know more of what's going on around the city and be included. So hopefully that newsletter will help in that way. That's all I've got.
All right, Tony.
Nothing else from me, Mayor. Thanks.
All right, Wayne.
Just wanted to let you know that the street sweeper, we've had that staffed every day for weeks. They're out in it all day, and we've authorized overtime, and we have staff working this coming weekend, to try to keep up. But we'll go down a block and come around it, and they'll have a bunch of leaves in it again. But just so you know, we have gotten a couple calls on it. It's staffed up every day. So we're doing our best on that.
It's fall in Iowa.
Right.
Yeah, leaves.
Yep.
Why are we bothering?
Should have some rain snows mixed on Saturday.
My
so that should
goodness.
help out.
Yeah. I think Joe canceled the snow.
We pulled up a drought. I believe in
Okay,
it.
yeah, that's it, Your Honor.
All right, thanks. Chief.
I have nothing. Thank you.
All right, Chief.
Two things. As you may know, the governor created the School Safety Bureau, and the head of the School Safety Bureau, children go to Norwalk schools, and the governor also authorized grant money for school safety projects. And to get that grant money, the school had to do a vulnerability assessment. And to Tuesday, Wednesday, and today, Officer Criswell and some contractors did those assessments on all the school buildings. And that now makes each of the school buildings eligible for $50,000 per building in school safety items. So
Good. Cool.
we're lucky that we got ahead of the game. There are a lot of school districts that couldn't get the contractors in to do them early. And we're lucky that the head of the whole bureau, children go to Norwalk schools. And we're lucky that Criswell is who he is and got it done quickly and comprehensively. So that's good. And then we've decided Cops with Cards this year will be November 30th, and we welcome everybody's participation. And hopefully we can outdo ourselves. Last year, Food Pantry continues to struggle to fill the families that come by. The number of families are increasing each week. So I mentioned it to Jim, the guy who runs the pantry, that we wanted to do it on the 30th, and he was very happy because right now they are pretty low on items. So That's all I have.
Thanks. Gene?
Just real quick mention to add to Carrie's health insurance update. The recommended increase is 5.4%. I don't think you mentioned that, did you? Okay. Sometimes but isn't too bad, I don't think, in this current climate. I think last year we were about 5.8, so a little bit lower. And we'll probably recommend that we go ahead and renew. It's a good plan.
Just a couple updates on a few of the bigger projects that we're working on. So we're still negotiating with the two larger flag hotels. We may request to do a short work session with council just to get a little bit more specific feedback on comfort level to just move forward. So now that we have a couple of very comparable projects in the works, that we want to be fair and we just want to make it as simple and clean as we can so that they can get moving forward. We will have our hotel market study back tomorrow. He's been giving us little tidbits. The contractor, he's been giving us some tidbits along the way, kind of showing what we're showing for our community. And it does show that the community could support multiple flags and it can be a mixture of the mid-level to the high-level flag. So that's pretty positive hearing that. You guys probably noticed the drone footage that Elliot took. It was out on social media. Ty made a little progress video of that to show what's happening at Norwalk Central. Lots of great feedback, of course, social media. But it's exciting to us. And we'll continue to do those to show the progress, especially once that turf is down. It's going to look really different. Infrastructure is still moving on time for everything in Norwalk Central. I know with the turf pods, they had half of the turf delivered and half of the rock because of the delay of supply. So I don't know if it's just sitting out there waiting for the other half or what they're doing with it, but that was the only reason the turf's not in is because they're waiting on half of it. So the bid letting for the core building and parking is this coming Thursday. So that's kind of exciting progress there. And then we will have a concession agreement. You know what I say, we'll have a concession agreement to you on November 17th. We're almost done with those 50 rounds of that, but it's looking good. And then we are also working on an addendum agreement just specifically for our shared parking area, the shared utilities, and any shared maintenance that we may have in the future with the Sportsplex and Heartland groups, because our properties touch and cross and the parking kind of blends together. So we're working on that. And right now the sponsor and the naming rights commitments are really looking good. They're doing a good job with that. The local businesses and maybe one or two metro businesses that have at least verbally committed so far, we're looking at about $100,000 a year for the first 5 years of revenue to the city. And they're just kind of getting started. They have a lot of smaller sponsorships to still work on. So that's been pretty good. And then for the Dunn certified site, so tonight you guys approved the preliminary plat. So on the November 17th council meeting, we will start the process to add that 40-acre parcel into our urban renewal area. So we'll be doing that amendment process starting next council meeting. That way we can use the increment to do a development agreement with them for their public infrastructure down there. So that over the next course of several council meetings, we'll be working through that and getting that process approved. And then December 1st, we'll start the hearing and approval process for amending the urban renewal area in the Norwalk Central area so that we can amend the diligent development agreement to add stormwater work in for them that they're doing on a couple of different parts of that project. And then last thing is the Kosovo delegation of mayors throughout the country of Kosovo. They're coming to Iowa next week, and they will be here on the 15th. So if you guys can just kind of mark your calendars if you want to be available, a part of that. We will have people from Boostry, elected officials from Boostry, our sister city, coming. And so Jackie and I will be planning that day out tomorrow, but it would be great if the department heads and some council members, mayor, are available for a meeting for that, because we do want to continue that relationship and they're coming a long way to see us. So we'll show off our best. So that's it.
Some of those officials be from Blue Street then?
Mhm.
Is that the way it worked out? Couple of.
Robert.
We had our drive-through trick or treat this past weekend. Numbers were down a little bit, but the kids really enjoyed it. Captain America showed up again this year, so that was kind of cool. We also had one of our police officers was there handing out footballs, and so between the two of them, the kids thought they were more cool than the candy this year. But Also, we are increasing the program that we do for Craft Club. In the past years, we used to only offer it at Lakewood. We are now going to start also offering it at Orchard Hills. That will start in January. And then, sorry, fencing. Our current fencing program, we have 13 participants, which has doubled from the previous season. So that's kind of cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's it.
You know why the kids thought the policeman was cool?
Why?
Because he is.
We always used to say that, you know, policemen, because firemen need heroes too.
That's right.
Anyway,
She almost stood out.
Now she might have something to say. Ask her if she's changed her mind about shit.
I couldn't resist that.
Sure, when Santa goes by his house, just make sure to give it a nice good squirt.
Yeah, we'd like to come and help into the ambulance, but
That's good. Caleb. Brian?
No.
Jackie?
I have two things. So we are part of ICON, which is the Iowa Confluence Water Trails System. They've had some big plans to redo the water trails, mostly in Des Moines, but ultimately will have effects kind of everywhere. They just got a big grant, made the news, so you might have already seen it, but they got their bid back, which was 40.9 million. The budget is for 40, so we are in really good shape to get that going, and that's going to be at the Scott Avenue Bridge, where they're gonna, the goal is to take out all the dams along the Des Moines River, right? That's right. And put in some more user-friendly areas around Scott Avenue that will include maybe some rapids, some shoreline accessibility for fishing, make the whole thing navigable, beginning to end with boats and kayaks and that kind of stuff. So very fun, cool stuff going on there. Other thing I want to kind of bring to everybody's attention, if you don't already know, our dear friend to the council and to the city, Judy Corcoran, you know, she's been struggling with cancer. So she posted that she is going to Iowa City for an esophagectomy, which means she's going to be in Iowa City for care and recovery for about 6 weeks. She has set up a calendar asking people who are willing to come be friends with her cats. Well, she's gone. She's got 3 cats. Stop by, pet them, love them. So if you need that link, I'm happy to share it. Otherwise, it's on Facebook, and she emailed it out to a bunch of people.
Thank you.
And prayers, of course.
Yes, so I thought the estimate for the water trials was 43.8 and that bid came in 40.
The bid came in at 40.9. Our budget is at 40. They've taken, they tweaked it several times. Originally it was the whole project. Then they divided it out into 3 because the budget came, or the bid came back at twice the budgeted amount.
Right.
So they broke it into 3. So now this part of it, yeah, it says that we're just about as close as we can get to the budget.
It goes before the MPO at a special meeting in November.
Yes, it does.
And the MPO meeting says that it's like a $3 million under estimate. So
yeah, very good.
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, the first thing I'm going to say, it just made me think of it with Jackie giving the update and some of the things I hear from council members giving updates at all these different committees and alliances and groups that we're a part of. I just want to say thank you to our elected officials. You guys put in a lot of additional time and go to those things, get good, healthy updates, just like what Jackie brought up for all these neat programs around the metro. And we have staff that do a lot of committee meetings as well, but we certainly appreciate all the time that you put into that. So thank you. On top of that, we had recently had an admin policy meeting. Or admin policy work group meeting, and we had a number of items we discussed. We talked about hometown pride, which is actually that's something that came from a request through Judy. So we talked about that. We talked about creation of a city council guidebook as new council members come on board, or even for existing council members that want to fully understand their role. We're putting together a guidebook there. Talked about our draft IT specialist job description, our cybersecurity policies, our hiring policy and procedures and background checks. And the biggest item I would say that we talked about was our overall facility planning. So just to let you know, that admin policy group would have a laundry list of things that we go over, and it covers a wide range. And again, I thank elected officials for being a part of that and giving a lot of good, healthy feedback. The last item I'll bring up from that meeting. So this has been discussed twice already this evening. Jean brought it up, and also our auditor brought it up about the amount of additional reserves we had left over after fiscal year 22. Well, if you recall, we talked about our wage study and doing wage adjustments so that we're competitive we're just competitive with our wages. And we said part of the way to make that work financially is we spread the increases over a year, but we also asked our department heads to hold back some funds, and we needed 1.5% to be held back. And we did have quite a few departments that were able to help with that. And the end result, again, I think you heard Jean said it was more like 3% that was held back. So kudos to department heads for following through on what they said they would do. And last thing, preparation of getting started with budgets. I will tell you that I've been spending quite a bit of time with Jean as well as some of the department heads, just talking about how we're going to strategize somewhat of a downturn in the economy. Seems like we're all expecting that. So we're doing our best to try and make that as painless as possible. That's why.
All right. I got two things. First off, November the 8th is election day. Please go out and vote. And then November the 12th, we'll have community chat in here at 9 o'clock, 9 to 10:30. So want to come? Cool. All right, that's all I had. I entertain a motion to adjourn. Livingston, seconded by Reba. I thought you guys wanted to stay here. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
All those opposed, same. All right, we're adjourned at 7:11 PM.
All right.
Thank you.
Worked off your obligation.
Oh, yeah, you too.